We often mistake the story of our past for a script that must be followed. The truth is, the past is simply a collection of experiences, choices, circumstances, and lessons. It is not a blueprint for the future. Yet, so many of us move through life believing that because something happened once, it must happen again. We carry our mistakes as permanent labels. We hold on to moments of failure as if they have the power to predict who we are allowed to become. We look back at our childhood, our failures, our pain, and we unconsciously allow it to become the lens through which we see every opportunity in front of us. The danger is not in the experiences themselves. The danger is in the meaning we assign to them. A failed relationship doesn't mean we are incapable of love. A missed opportunity doesn't mean we are destined for a lifetime of missed chances. A betrayal by someone we trusted doesn't mean the world is filled only with people we cannot rely on. But when we confuse the story of what happened with a prophecy of what must happen, we begin to live a life confined by fear instead of a life driven by hope. Stories are powerful. They give meaning to chaos. They help us make sense of our journey, but stories can also imprison us if we are not careful. We repeat them so often in our minds that they become invisible walls around our potential. I always mess things up. I'm not good enough. People like me don't succeed. These are not facts. These are stories we have rehearsed so many times that they feel like truths. They aren't. They are scripts we have the power to rewrite. Understanding that your past is a story gives you freedom. It means you are not bound by what happened to you. You are not required to carry the weight of old mistakes, old failures, old wounds. It means that every day is a blank page, every decision an opportunity to tell a new story. It means you are not fated to relive the worst moments of your life. You are not stuck in a loop. You are not broken or beyond repair. You are evolving, growing, changing. When you stop treating the past like prophecy, you reclaim your ability to choose. You can choose to learn instead of regret. You can choose to forgive instead of resent. You can choose to see yourself not as a product of your worst days, but as a person shaped by resilience, shaped by the determination to keep moving forward. Your identity is not frozen in time. You are not the same person today that you were yesterday, and you will not be the same person tomorrow that you are today. Growth is always available, but only to those willing to stop worshiping their old stories as unchangeable truths. Many people unknowingly protect their pasts more fiercely than their futures. They defend their limitations because their limitations have become familiar. There is a strange kind of comfort in believing that we already know how the story ends. It removes the burden of trying, it protects us from the sting of failure, but it also locks us out of the possibility of greatness. Growth requires risk. It requires the courage to believe that no matter what the past says, the future can be different. It is not easy to let go of old stories. It requires awareness, intention, and sometimes the willingness to sit with discomfort. It requires questioning long-held beliefs about who you are and what you are capable of. It requires daring to imagine that the best parts of your story have not even been written yet. It asks you to stop looking backward for evidence of who you can be and start looking inward for the truth of who you already are. There is a common misconception that change happens slowly, over time, as if the simple passing of days will somehow deliver us into a new version of ourselves. We wait, we hope, we tell ourselves that when the conditions are right, when we feel ready, when the timing is perfect, then we will finally step into the lives we dream about. But transformation does not belong to time. It belongs to a decision. It belongs to the moment we choose, consciously and fully, to do something different. Time alone changes nothing. It only amplifies whatever decisions we are already making. If we choose to stay the same, time will faithfully preserve our current reality. If we choose to act differently, time becomes our partner in building a new future, but it all starts with the choice. The real power is not in the ticking of the clock, it's in the clarity and courage of a single moment where we say, no more, something must change and I will be the one to change it. That decision is often invisible to the outside world. It does not require fanfare or announcement. It happens quietly, deep inside, often when no one else is watching. It might happen in the middle of the night when we're wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we ended up here. It might happen after another disappointment, another broken promise, another realization that life will not simply hand us what we hope for. It might happen in a conversation, a book, a moment of inspiration that finally tips the balance in our minds. But however it comes, transformation is triggered by decision, not by the slow drip of passing days. The beauty of this truth is that it puts the power back in our hands. We don't have to wait for the right circumstances. We don't have to wait for someone else to give us permission. We don't have to wait for more experience, more approval, more resources. We can decide now. We can decide that the old way is no longer acceptable. We can decide that our potential is worth fighting for. We can decide that discomfort is a price we are willing to pay for growth. Waiting for the perfect moment is the enemy of transformation. It tricks us into thinking that action must follow certainty, that we must know exactly how the path will unfold before we can start walking it. But real transformation often begins without a clear map. It begins with a willingness to move forward even when the road is foggy, even when the future is uncertain. It begins with the acceptance that we might stumble, we might fall, we might fail, but we will not stand still. There is something profound about a real decision. It cuts through excuses, it eliminates the mental clutter, it narrows our focus to what truly matters. A real decision is not a wish or a vague hope. It is a commitment backed by action. It is the quiet but unshakable inner voice that says, I will find a way, no matter how hard, no matter how long it takes. I will not go back to the way things were. That is the birthplace of transformation. Transformation is less about doing 1,000 things differently and more about doing one thing differently, deeply with conviction. It might be the decision to forgive, the decision to ask for help, the decision to finally believe we are worthy of something better. It might look small from the outside, but inside it is seismic. It shifts the ground we stand on. It alters the trajectory of our lives. Every major change you admire in individuals, in businesses, in communities started not with time, but with a decision. Someone decided that the old way was no longer enough. Someone decided to rise instead of retreat. Someone decided to bet on the future rather than stay anchored to the past. There is a point in life when we must realize that no one else is responsible for writing our future. It is tempting to believe that circumstances, other people, or even fate are in control. But the truth is simpler and far more empowering. We hold the pen. We are the ones who decide what the next chapter will be. No matter what has happened before, no matter what obstacles have been placed in our path, the story from this moment forward is ours to create. It is easy to give away that power without even noticing. We blame our parents, our upbringing, our environment. We blame missed opportunities, bad luck, unfair systems. These explanations may have truth to them, but they are not the whole truth. They are the introduction to our story, not the conclusion. What we often forget is that authors have creative license. We can draw from any inspiration, any lesson, any setback, and still craft something extraordinary. Our past is a chapter already printed, but the pages ahead are blank, waiting for our decision about what happens next. Being the author of your life is both liberating and terrifying. It means that excuses no longer hold. It means that waiting for someone else to rescue you is no longer an option. It means you have to take responsibility not just for your dreams, but for the daily actions that move you toward them. It demands intentionality. It demands that you choose the themes of your life: courage, resilience, love, growth, and write them into every day, even when you are tired, even when you are afraid. Many people live life as if they are side characters in someone else's story. They follow the expectations placed on them by family, culture, or tradition. They walk a path that feels familiar but not fulfilling. They silence their own desires because they believe they are less important than the desires of others. But the truth is, no one else can live your life for you. No one else can define success for you. No one else can dream your dreams, feel your joys, endure your struggles. You are the one who must decide what legacy you will leave, what memories you will create, what meaning you will give to your time here. This is not about rejecting advice or pretending that the world is fair and easy. It is about realizing that even within difficulty, even within limitation, there is choice. Viktor Frankl, surviving the worst horrors of humanity, reminded the world that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. We may not control what happens to us, but we always control how we interpret it, how we respond to it, and how we allow it to shape who we become. When you step into the role of author, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What will I do with this?" You stop waiting for signs and start creating meaning. You stop hoping for opportunities and start building them. You realize that no plot twist is final unless you decide to stop writing. Every loss can lead to a breakthrough. Every heartbreak can lead to a deeper capacity to love. Every failure can be the raw material for a greater triumph, but only if you pick up the pen and decide to keep telling the story. It is not about getting it perfect. No great story is without conflict, without mistakes, without moments of darkness. It is about owning the story. It is about standing in the middle of the mess and saying, "This is mine to shape." It is about realizing that the greatest power you have is not to erase the past, but to create the future deliberately, courageously, unapologetically. The past is a powerful teacher, but it is not meant to be a prison. It carries the lessons, the memories, the victories, and the heartbreaks that have shaped who we are today. Yet, far too often, we allow it to become something heavier than it was ever intended to be. Instead of serving as a guide, the past becomes a cage, limiting our possibilities and chaining us to outdated versions of ourselves. We begin to see ourselves through the lens of old mistakes, old labels, and old fears, forgetting that the past's true role is to inform our growth, not to restrict it. Every experience, good or bad, has something to teach. The pain teaches resilience, the failure teaches perseverance, the betrayal teaches wisdom. Even the moments that seemed meaningless at the time, when reflected upon, can reveal hidden truths about who we are and what we value. But learning from the past is very different from living inside it. When we let the past define us, we close ourselves off to the future. We start to believe that who we were is all we can ever be. We forget that human beings are not static. We are capable of reinvention, renewal, and transformation at any moment we choose. Allowing the past to guide you means carrying forward the lessons without carrying forward the weight. It means looking back not to mourn what was lost, but to better understand what is possible. It means honoring the journey without being trapped by it. It is the difference between saying, "I failed, so I am a failure," and saying, "I failed and I learned something invaluable." One way leads to stagnation. The other leads to strength. There is no shame in having scars. Scars are proof that we lived, that we tried, that we cared enough about something to risk being hurt. But scars are not meant to be walls. They are meant to be reminders of our capacity to heal. They are not reasons to hide. They are reasons to stand taller, knowing we have endured and still remain open to the possibility of something greater. The past should never be a justification for playing small or giving up. It should be the foundation upon which we build something bolder and braver. Sometimes we cling to the past because it is familiar. Even our pain can become a comfort when we know it so well. The unknown, by contrast, feels risky, frightening, full of uncertainty, but growth requires stepping beyond what is familiar. It requires trusting that the lessons we have gathered are enough to help us navigate what lies ahead. It requires believing that we are capable not just of surviving, but of thriving, not despite our past, but because we have been strengthened by it. The moments of shame, regret, and fear that we carry do not have to dictate our future. They can instead be transformed into fuel, fuel to drive better decisions, fuel to create deeper relationships, fuel to pursue dreams with more urgency and purpose. If we allow the past to guide us rather than define us, we walk into the future with wisdom in our minds and hope in our hearts, rather than chains around our ankles. The past is a place of reference, not residence. It is a compass, not a sentence. It points us toward understanding, but it does not determine where we must go next. We can honor what we have lived through without being trapped by it. We can look back and say, "That shaped me," without also saying, "That limits me." We can choose to let the past add depth to our character without allowing it to narrow our dreams. There is a common illusion that the future is something that happens to us, a destination we eventually arrive at without much influence over the journey. Many people live as though the future is a mystery that will simply unfold, as if they are passengers rather than participants in their own lives. But the truth is much simpler and much more powerful. The future is not a random event waiting somewhere in the distance. It is being shaped right now, in this moment, by the choices we make today. Every decision, no matter how small, moves us closer to or farther from the future we envision. The conversations we have, the habits we build, the risks we take, the values we honor, these are the bricks that pave the road ahead. The future is not made in grand, sweeping gestures. It is made in the quiet discipline of today's actions. It is made in the choices we make when no one is watching, when the temptation to delay is strong, when the easy way out is right there within reach. Most people want better outcomes without changing the behaviors that produce them. They hope that somehow tomorrow will be different while doing exactly what they did yesterday. But hope is not a strategy. Hope without action is simply a wish. The only way to build a future that looks different from the past is to choose differently today. To be conscious about the direction we are heading instead of drifting along on autopilot. To be intentional about who we are becoming rather than reactive to whatever circumstances arise. It is easy to underestimate the power of small choices. Choosing to read instead of scrolling. Choosing to have a difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. Choosing to take the first step toward a dream instead of waiting for the perfect moment. Each decision might seem insignificant in isolation, but compounded over days, months, and years, these small acts of courage and discipline transform the trajectory of our lives. Every choice plants a seed. Some seeds grow quickly, others take time, but they are all shaping the landscape of the future we are moving toward. There is no neutral decision. Everything either builds momentum or steals it. Everything either aligns with our values or erodes them. When we understand this, we stop treating today like a rehearsal and start treating it like the main event. We stop wasting time hoping for a better future and start making one. We realize that we are not waiting for opportunities to appear. We are creating them through preparation, persistence, and the refusal to settle for less than what we are capable of. Some choices are obvious, others are more subtle, hidden in the habits we build or the standards we set for ourselves. Choosing to show up on time, choosing to listen deeply, choosing to tell the truth even when it is uncomfortable. These choices define not just the future outcomes we experience, but the kind of person we become along the way. Our character is shaped in the small moments far more than in the big ones. Our integrity is revealed not when the world is watching, but when no one else will ever know the difference. We are not victims of chance. We are architects of possibility. Every action today sends a ripple into tomorrow. Every sacrifice made today becomes an investment in the life we are creating. Every risk taken today expands the horizons of what is possible. The dream is not built someday. It is built brick by brick, decision by decision, action by action, starting now. When we think of change, we often imagine it as something massive and overwhelming, a sweeping transformation that happens all at once. We picture bold leaps, grand gestures, and overnight success stories. But real, lasting change rarely looks like that. It is not built in sudden flashes of brilliance. It is built in small, courageous actions, taken consistently over time. The kind of actions that might seem almost invisible in the moment, yet accumulate to create powerful, undeniable shifts in the course of our lives. Courage is often misunderstood as something reserved for extraordinary moments. We think of courage as running into burning buildings or standing on grand stages, but the courage that changes lives most often shows up in the small decisions we make every day. It is the courage to have an honest conversation when silence would be easier. It is the courage to say yes to a new opportunity even when fear whispers no. It is the courage to set a boundary, to ask for help, to admit when we do not have all the answers. These small, courageous actions may not make headlines, but they make a difference. They change the way we see ourselves. They build confidence in layers, moment by moment. Every time we choose courage over comfort, we strengthen a new identity. We become the kind of person who acts despite fear, who leads with integrity, who trusts themselves enough to move even when the path ahead is uncertain. Transformation happens not in a single moment of bravery, but in a lifetime of choosing to be brave in the small things. Small actions matter because they are sustainable. They bypass the overwhelming pressure to change everything at once, which often leads to burnout and defeat. Instead, small, courageous steps create momentum. They build habits. They change the way we think about what we are capable of. A single step forward, however small, creates the momentum for another and another. Over time, this compound effect is powerful. What starts as a whisper of change becomes a roar of transformation. It is easy to overlook these small acts because they rarely feel dramatic. They might not be celebrated or even noticed by others. But the significance lies not in the attention they receive, but in the direction they set. A decision to speak kindly to yourself instead of harshly, a choice to take one small action toward a dream instead of waiting for inspiration. A decision to stand up for your values even when it costs you something. These moments define the path you are walking, and over time, they define the life you are living. Change rooted in small, courageous actions is change that endures. It is not the result of external pressure, but of internal conviction. It is not about forcing transformation, but about embodying it. When you build a life on these small acts of courage, you are not dependent on motivation or perfect conditions. You learn to move forward regardless of how you feel. You learn that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. The greatest transformations are not made by those who wait for perfect confidence. They are made by those who dare to act with the little courage they have today, trusting that more will come. Courage grows with use. It strengthens every time we lean into it. What feels terrifying at first becomes second nature over time. What feels impossible today becomes just another step tomorrow. The future belongs to those who are willing to start small, to begin imperfectly, to move forward with whatever courage they can find in the present moment.